The reason I think this field's so important is that virtual simulators have been with us for decades. So flight simulators, the way pilots train now, has increased safety in flying, has increased the ability for pilots to train longer and in more difficult situations. This is being extended into simulation for medical training, so we can train doctors better now and all sorts of things, in surgery and how to interact with patients. But we can also simulate how buildings are, so before we build the buildings, we can see what they're going to look like and how you're going to use them. So over time, this is just going to slowly but surely improve our lives. Well, one of the areas that I've worked in over the years is in how to use augmented reality outside. And with the advent of Google and Meta making a glasses form factor head-mounted display that will look like just normal glasses that you can take outside. I think in 15 years, not everybody will have this, but many people will have these glasses. And so the work we did to show how you can present information safely, so you make sure you don't walk in front of a bus or something like this, I think is going to have a large impact. I see two risks. The first risk is that these are quite invasive technologies. They record a lot of data about you, and if this data becomes used improperly, they record where you're looking, they record your heartbeat, they record your skin temperature, they can record your some of EEG, some things about brain activity. And I worry that this will not be used in an ethical manner. The second fear that I have is I think the overuse of phones and the overuse of computers, it's addictive technology. I don't think virtual reality is any more than this. It's just another display. And, I think, it worries me that maybe this becomes a replacement for your phone, and then all of a sudden you're not interacting with people as much as you used to. One of the areas that we can do is if you're informed immediately and in an understandable fashion that data is being collected about you. So making people aware of when data is being collected and how that data is being used, I think can help people gain control over that. And also have them understand the technology that they're using, the phone, so they understand that they can turn this off if they want to. So it can give people more control over their own personal data. The challenge comes from if you want to make something wearable and portable, you can't put a big computer on. And this becomes even a larger challenge in the future because if you're wearing a pair of glasses and they have very thin frames, you can't put a very big battery in there or a very big computer in there. So these technologies will require lighter computer and lighter power consumption. So it just can't handle it. So that's a particular direction. That's a problem. I went to this castle yesterday. What's the name of this castle?
Hohenschwil.
So this is a very large castle that's been destroyed. It's on top of a mountain here. Now, there's two things that you can do that I think this is where I think this technology becomes great. So one is if people physically can't go to that castle, it's a reasonably steep walk to get to the top. Well, you can experience the castle in virtual reality. And I think the rich history that just had a little tiny bit in this region is this is an important part of the history, and being able to experience it and understand the fact that, yes, this is why this castle, nobody could defeat this castle, because when you stand on top of it, you're going to say, wow, it would be very hard for somebody to take over this castle. And the second thing that we could do is while you're in the castle, the castle was destroyed, or not destroyed, but was heavily knocked down. There's still lots of it there. You could see what it looked like before it was destroyed. You could also see, you could look down onto the plains around it and get historical reenactments of some of the activities that happened there. So I think this brings history alive and accessible to to school kids and people and all people. No, I think spending time in nature is like incredibly important. So I don't, and I think walking in a VR nature is not the same as walking in nature. And this country and this region is very lucky that it's easy to get to very nice areas. So this should not replace it. Now, years ago we made an outdoor AR game, and one of the things that the game was, to make it safe and more enjoyable, you actually had to interact with the world. So it gave you more, it just, annotated the world and you interacted with it. And it was a multiplayer game, so it was a different way for people to play. So you're outside walking around, or not running because the technology, you couldn't run with the technology, but you're interacting with people and you're interacting with the physical world and the buildings and stuff. So there are ways to make this happen. But yes, it does worry me that people spend more time on electronics in general than going out in the real world. Okay, so I'm semi-retired now, so I get to pick what I work on. And I think one of the things that I would like to do is convert some of the research that I've done into solving real-world problems. So I work with a designer, and so we're working on projection technology. And so what he does is he makes full-size mock-ups with cardboard that's like 2 centimeters thick, so it's very robust. And so you understand what a new patient examination room would look like. So what we want to do is, it gives you the physical structure of it, but then what I want to do is project onto the surfaces in there to get a better understanding of what the purpose of the room is. So where do you put the electric plugs? Where does the medicine cabinet go? Where does the window go? And so the idea is that it gives people a better idea, because they can physically walk around with and virtually interact with some things in the room, that they'll understand what this design is going to be. So my goal is to solve the user interaction problems, to say, how is this a tool that a designer will use? Not a computer scientist, but a designer. And so I not only have to understand the user interaction and the projection and all that stuff, I have to understand what is the process that they go through to not only design something, but explain the design to the client, get information from the client to understand, to make the design better, and this iterative process of improvement. So that's one of my goals at the moment. So we, very early on, what we did was we made backpack computers that you could take a computer outside and put a headset on, and you could run around and do activities outside. It's just the sheer excitement of working with the students and making this work. I mean, it's like, hey, this really works. And, oh wow, we can do something we couldn't do. It's the excitement, I think, is this, and there's multiple stories of this, but I think people don't realize how much fun research is. And you make something and you discover something, and it's, I don't know, it's just fun. That's what it is. I like to go hiking. In Australia, they call it bushwalking, and I find that very relaxing. And now that I have more time, I'm doing it more. But it's when you go outside and you're walking, and it's a number of things happen. One is you're not bombarded by emails and phone calls and everything like that. But my mind drifts sometimes, I mean, it sometimes drifts into work, but I now can think clearly. And other times it's just completely oblivious to work, and I come back and I'm refreshed, and it's being outside. I don't know what it is. It's the sound of the birds. It's the whole experience. I'm going to answer this because there's a lot of ways to look at this. Because a career in visual computing can be in academia, can be in industry, can be working for the government. And so I think what's critical is to understand what it is, what drives you, once again, fun and excitement. What is it that you want to do? And I've worked in all three. I spent most of my time in academia, but I was worked in companies, and I worked for a government lab in the university. In the United States. I loved all of them. I have to say I think overall my favorite job was being a high school physics teacher, but it didn't pay very well. But besides that, I like academia because I get to choose a lot about what I do. All three of them have interesting problems. All three of them are very good working environments, I've found. But it's find out what it is that you would like to do. And once you start someplace, doesn't mean you stay there. When I first started, I changed companies every year for a few years. So find out what it is and enjoy yourself. You only have one life.